I'm so excited to share this lesson with you on still life. Usually when you mention still life, you hear this audible groan in the audience, like, oh no, we had to do that when I took lessons. It's boring. However, we're going to approach this subject in a non-traditional manner. In other words, this tutorial is going to be a little out of the box. And one of the reasons I'm so excited about it is because it combines two of my great loves, both drawing and painting. Now, this isn't the first time I've done a similar lesson. So I just wanted to show you, I put two of my other lessons involving the use of the black watercolor pencil and watercolor. And this is one of my very favorite paintings right here. And you can see there's a lot of graphite in here. And when you look at it, it's partially a drawing and partially a painting. And this particular one also involves the shaping in the background to form the some of the hard edges and to frame the sunflowers in. And I'm going to send you a bonus lesson how I do this. And then this one over here I'm really excited about too. This was also pre-drawn with my black pencil so that when I wet the colors, they just moved in the black graphite. And it's you can still see a lot of the elements of the drawing in here, some of the black lines. I just love it. So today we're going to start with drawing. Now, a lot of our lessons are going to involve drawing first. And you can see I'm getting ready here with a portrait. This one here, I've been following this wonderful sunflower over the whole summer. And it's just getting to the point now where I had to paint it. So that's a lesson coming up too. But today what we're going to do is we're going to start with the drawing. And this happens to be just a grouping of roses in glass vases. And it looks pretty traditional at this point, but wait until we get started. I'm going to wet this black pencil. It's going to move. The graphite's going to be floating around on the wet surface. While it's floating around, I'm going to charge in the watercolor, and it's going to be, I think, a pretty exciting way to go. I know I've been teaching this all summer, and everybody loves it. It's been a great experience. Here's a few examples. Oh, here's another drawing I did. I couldn't decide which one I would paint for you, but I decided to go with the roses. And this is kind of fun, a little bit of history. When I was down in New Zealand 10 years ago, I was with my friend Pauline, and we set up a little still life and started putting it together and just added things when we wanted to. And we just let anything go. We weren't worried about, like, what are these? And what are they doing up there? They should be sitting on the table. And we just would stick things in wherever we felt. And it turned out to be a great experience. But then I thought, how am I going to translate this into a lesson for my students? So I decided to think about it. And I actually thought about it for 10 years before I presented this as a lesson. And here's one you can see in progress. I still want to come in and go darker with some of these lines here. I can either do it with my pencil or I can do it with paint. And you can see here I was trying to simulate a piece of pottery. And again, I'm just sticking things in as I feel like it. You can see where I'm starting to finish it up in here. This one here was actually filmed from the very beginning. I set up a still life. Happened to be back in the season when the lupine, early in the spring, when the lupine were just opening up. And I have to do a token lupine paintings every year. So we set this up, and so you get this as a free bonus. And here's one I absolutely love. I moved in close here so you could see some of this incredible movement of the graphite. See how it does what it wants to do. All these edges you see here were created by the graphite. All I did was wet it, and these areas just melted out. So as the summer progressed, I got looser and looser. I love it. And for example, when I painted this apple, All this that you see that's bled out is from the paint on the wet surface combining with the graphite and just burning right out of there. So you'll see that happening on almost all of these edges. They're just moving and doing whatever they want to do. Then I come in later and tighten it up, add a little more color. So it's a two-part lesson. We're going to start with the wetting, charging in the color, then later when everything's dry, we're going to come back and give it a finished look. Here's another one, and you can see here, this is a more finished piece. I've actually come back and tightened up a lot of the areas into a pretty traditional looking still life, but it still has that little bit of edginess to it. And I'm just having fun sticking in shapes, sticking in tabletops, and of course I had to add radishes because our youngest son opened a restaurant now called the Fat Radish. Part of the fun has been to add subjects from our childhood. This happens to be a teddy bear that belonged to my husband when he was probably 3-4 years old, so just imagine how old that teddy bear is. So I just decided I had to put him into this still life. And I'm still going to develop a little more down here to finish it, add some more color, but I just had to show you that the still life is an excellent opportunity for you to add special touches from your own background. It could be a special lace, or there are just so many things that you could add to it that would make it a very special piece. And I also wanted to show you this because this was one of the first ones I did, and it's I think it's kind of fun. I got a little carried away with some of the background shapes, but all in all, I just love the way the colors and the flow of the darks and the almost abstract composition that we have going here. I think it's actually working out pretty well. Well, it's time to get started. Well, I'm pretty excited today to share with you drawing. Drawing is so important. It's how we get our ideas across to the viewers. And drawing is an important skill that I personally love. I've been drawing since I was very young. And so what we're going to work with today, I got some beautiful red roses here. And you can see I practiced a little here behind me. I drew this yesterday. And this, I actually have painted the picture already. So you can see it in the background. So this is what this drawing that was done with a black watercolor pencil. When it's all wet, really, really wet into wet, this is the result, and I'm real excited about it. It's a little bit of a non-traditional way to approach a still life. So now looking at this beautiful still life, I took a picture of it so that you can see what I'm seeing here. We've actually got a light here, just a nice light like this, and I have it setting up so that I'm getting very pronounced light on the subject, which really helps with creating the values, the dark and light and midtones. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've made an evaluation that this picture it's 15 inches, and you can see at 5 inches, like 1/3, and at another third, it's the halfway point of the background here. So I'm going to start with just a few critical lines like that to get me established. Now this one, my paper's 21 inches. So if I just make an indication at 7 inches and at 14 inches, this would be like the back of the paper. And this is going to be like the top of this. So that's a very good starting point. And I like the position it's in approximately 1/3. That's really good. So what we're going to do is we'll just start here. Now when I look at the subject, I can just start to see a little bit of an elliptical shape. And then it's a really strange little bottle. I don't know where it came from, but I've had it for quite a while. I love it. It's 3-sided. So what we're going to do is we're going to show the 3 sides. And it's going to come down. And of course, always these lines have to be parallel to the edge of the paper. So as carefully as you can make them parallel, that's important. And I'm going to start out with just regular HB pencil. And then before this halfway point, is right here. In approximately this position is another bottle, and you can see the elliptical, I can see into this even a little bit more. So that's kind of fun. And then this is going to come down, oh, I don't know, approximately there. And it's got a cute little shape coming around. So what I try to do is to make these as equal as I can. So I kind of like do little sections at a time. And now it reverses. So now we're going to reverse it. And it's going to come in. And then there's all kinds of things in front of it. But this will give us, and this will be somewhat elliptical too. Now any lines I don't need, I get rid of them right away. And like this one. Okay, and then we've got the position here. This is going to come down even more to approximately here. And then we're going to see the back side of this bottle. It's a three-sided bottle. So I'm going to put that in there. It's a strange little bottle, but I love it. It's perfect for roses. And then we've got a third jar here. And so once we position these jars, I'm just going to start right back in with my black pencil. Now we don't get to see the top of this jar because there's a lot of foliage in place. But we can see that it is overlapping with this jar. And it's not, let's see, right about in here, I'd say. So we're just going to come down. I love these old canning jars. I used to have a big garden. It was busy days. Now I can see some of these shapes inside the bottle. This is very cool. And over here we've got our water line, approximately in here. So I think we've got enough information. The top of this bottle doesn't look right, but that's the way I see it here. So I'm just going to leave it. So now I'm going to jump right in. I have with me a Kimberly watercolor black pencil. And when this is wet, it is going to just go all over. We've got a lot of excitement ahead. So I'm just going to now jump in with this pencil and just go ahead and start drawing. Like I love to overlap shapes. So one of the things I'm going to overlap right away are some of these wonderful petals. Oh, they're great. And I just love when they come and fill up the page. I'm always looking for interlocking and overlapping shapes. So like here's one already that's overlapping. And I'll make most of the stems quite dark. And so now where this joins in here, it's going to come down. And I just love the way they look different in the water. So we're going to have a little fun with that too. So it's going to go into the water approximately here, go through the glass jar here. Then it's going to come up. And about here we're going to start with the actual rose. And first of all, I just like to get the general shape. So in terms of the size, that looks pretty good. And then I like to have anything that can break out and make it look just a little bit more interesting. So of course these petals that roll over always make for an interesting design. And that inside, look at that. Now the other thing I'm looking for, especially with this dark pencil, I'm looking to do a little bit of shading. So as this progresses, I'm going to shade in some of these darker shapes, and especially the darker shapes of these stems and these petals. much got one rose here. And then, oh, I love this. Love this. We've got these gorgeous leaf shapes going over the petal. Very important. And they don't have to look exactly. I take some liberties, as you'll see as I progress. Okay, now I actually am a little high on this one. When I look at it's a little higher. But that's okay, see? And these don't hold a tip very well, so you'll notice I've got a whole bunch of them here. So I just go from pencil to pencil. Okay, now we're gonna have another one. Oh, this has got a spiky. I love that. So we're gonna stop at the water line here. And then we're gonna stop here at the glass. And then we're gonna come out and go over this way. One of the bad things about this watercolor pencil is you cannot erase it. So if some of you are a little uneasy about just doing this, there's no change in it. This is it. So now I have again the overlapping that I think is so important. The fact that these two roses are touching each other, that's really important. And I love these petals that come down. Okay, so we'll get a few of those in. There's another one over here. Now the fun part is this stem. So we're going to take this stem, make it dark. Usually when they have a little bend like that, they have some kind of either a leaf or another one of those picky things. When we hit the water line, and the water line's got a little toning, this is the back. Now it's really interesting, you often see this in water. It's called refraction. This stem is actually not lined up. It's amazing. So we're going to leave it that way. I love it. And we'll do some reversals in here. Get a little more shading down here. Now I don't want to draw any more until I do the foreground here. So the next thing I'm going to do is jump into the foreground. And I've got a lovely flower coming up, angling through here. Oh, it's a great one. I love this. I had such a good time with these flowers, setting them up. Again, we have some lovely overlapping. And we have maybe another petal coming out here. And I'm still going to make this stem dark, even though it's not real dark on there. And I like the way we're seeing another position here on the petal. Now this bottle has a number of faceted areas. So I'm just going to actually switch to my pencil that I can erase. And just get some of this drawn in. And you can see it's got these pointy things. Oops, I'll do this. And then there's just some interesting patterns going on here. I'm just going to play with the idea. Sort of goes back now this way. See, some of these lines I can erase. And I like the patterns that I can see. Some of the patterns are just these lines here like this. And then some of them are just dark shapes that I think are going to be fun to illuminate here. Because when I wet this paper, a lot of this detail is just going to float around. So that gives me a lot of freedom. Just have fun, don't worry about it. Just go for it. Now we also have this stem coming in here, inside these faceted areas. So again, we're going to show it dark here, but just little sections of dark in here. As it comes down and forms these. Yeah, so you can see it. Now we have another, oh, this is nice. We have another one here. And again, we've got the facets as it comes through. We'll bring it over here. Okay, so this one's going to go up, make a turn, and about in here. So now the fun starts. We've got another one here. This one's coming up, crossing over, coming up behind this, in front of this. Ooh, here we go. Again, anytime these are touching, I'm happy. I don't want them all perfectly separated. A lot of times when you get a vase full of these from the florist, they have them so perfectly arranged. The first thing I do is move them around. Okay, so now we've got another one of these. Now the fun part, we're going to pull these down into the vase. There's some more over here. And then this stem appears to come pretty straight down. And the water line is pretty low on this. What was I thinking? This actually, what I'm seeing here, is the water line. Okay, so I'm going to put that water line in, up here. And there's going to be some really nice shapes in here. We can erase that other line because that was pencil. And again, we need to give us some facets here. And play a little bit with some of these shapes. It's kind of fun. I can't wait to wet this one. Okay, now we're ready to take off here with another rose, an interlocking rose. Oh, they're so pretty. So let's come up here. Usually anything in the background, I do a little shading to push it back. And I love these guys. Okay, here we go. We got another one up through here. And this one I really like. This one is a bud. Oh, this is great. So I'm going to make room in here for another one. We've got this bud way up here. So it's going to have a relatively small, still hasn't quite opened. You can see that. Oh. Yeah. Oh, so pretty. Well, there we have another bud. Love it. You can see how quickly these pencils need to be sharpened, so I just usually have a handful of them with me. You'll find one of these black pencils in your free gift box. Now we get to fill in a bunch of these lovely leaf shapes. And I always like to have some of them interlocking with the other leaves, with the stems, with the flowers. So don't forget to do that. Okay. Now I get to add some more leaves in here too. And I usually take all kinds of liberties for this. So it might not look exactly like the photograph. And if you really don't want to take all this time to draw it yourself, I do have this as a kit too. So just check it out. Now I'm going to add, I almost don't need that one over there, but I think I'm going to put it in. And I have this lovely one here in the foreground. Oh man, that I shouldn't have done so much drawing here. I forgot about that. Let's see how much I can erase here. Oh, I'm pretty lucky. It's gonna work. So once again, I want this overlapping shape. So important. And we definitely need something to pull us down into this foreground. So we're gonna have this nice big open rose coming down. We're actually looking into this rose. Oh boy, there's a lot of petals here. See, we're not going for pure realism. So I'm just looking for shapes that's going to break this up. And that's all we need to worry about. Then you can see we've just let a few of these petals fall down. I actually had this set up last night and some of these just fell. And I left them just where they fell. So I like this. I can add a little bit of a petal here and there. Okay, now this needs a stem. And something interlocking here. And right here I'm going to have another lovely petal coming out towards the foreground with the stem going behind. All right. And again, we have another petal here. The stem coming out behind it. See, every time that stem takes a little bend, there's a thorn. So I'll put a little thorn on there. And we have one more petal that I'm excited about because it's got this little stem. So it's going to lead us into the foreground even more. Oh, this is good. We really needed this to balance the whole composition. And then I see there's another red petal here. That's good. Okay, so now we just got a little bit more to go. One of the things that I have enjoyed over the years, and I look at everybody's drawing, I look for what is really unique about their drawing. Because your drawing it's like your signature. Every person has a little different approach to it. One of the things I do that's kind of unique, and I just decided I wanted to share this with you, I like to think about the pressure all the time. So sometimes when I'm reproducing my paintings, parts of them don't reproduce because I am constantly pressing harder, relieving it, pressing harder. So you'll notice your line quality changes. When you press hard, it's darker, and then when you lighten up, it's a little bit lighter, and then it gets darker again, and then lighter. And this is something I've done all my life. And for me, it makes my drawing style unique. So think about it when you're drawing. What's going to be unique about the way you draw? Is it the pressure of the pencil? Is it the type of line? But the more you draw, the more this unique quality will emerge. Well, that's it. I'm going to stop, and I'm going to have a lot of fun later putting in some color sanding, maybe a lace tablecloth. I'm definitely going to make the roses red. Oh, they're so beautiful. And if you, I did this drawing so that you could see how I developed this whole procedure. But the one behind me is actually the one I painted, and it's all done. You can see it all done. So coming up next, we'll have a complete video on how I painted this. I hope it goes well for you. Well, we're ready to get started. I really had a lot of fun drawing this, and you can see where I came in and put in a lot of dark edges too. And I did this by using like the side of my pencil. And I did color in almost all of these stems to be quite a bit darker. And every now and then I might add a little shape that I think would happen in the water. And you can see I've done almost the inside of just about every one of these petals has been darkened. And of course, this being the furthest away, as they step back, I've got this the darkest, so that'll pop out the ones in front. Now this has got a dark leaf shape here, so I didn't put too much darkness here, but it wouldn't hurt actually to come in here with just a little bit more. And in terms of my composition, I'm always thinking about, I like to have something vertical. And if you think about dividing your paper into thirds, and you'll hear me talk about this a lot. So in terms of the composition, I always try to have something more exciting happening approximately a third of the way over. So adding this particular rose and some of these fun stems of like old dead branches, and they can turn and twist and have little gnarly things sticking out of them. That's the best part. So I tried to interlock those and move them through the picture approximately a third of the way, and then coming up a third of the way too. I know this is a very formalized sounding composition, but it's just amazing, it really works. So you can see here I've got a rose kind of turning off, going off the page up here. I could actually just go off the page over here too if I want. I'll just add another leaf here, interlocking with this, maybe add a little color to it. So that's basically how I think in terms of my composition, getting these thirds going, doing some of this extra drawing because I want a lot of graphite, and I'm pretty much ready to start. Now the very first thing I want to do is start by working the back, getting it really wet. So I'm going to start with my big, this is a 4-inch hake brush, maybe hake, there's I've been trying to practice and get it right, but it's some kind of an oriental brush that I've been using forever to wet my paper. I love it because it holds a lot of water. It's some kind of a natural bristle. You can tell because when you bend it, it stays there. That is not synthetic, folks. That is the real thing. Probably some hog. Okay, now comes the exciting part. I'm going to move my water in close so that you can see the wetting is very important. So I'm going to take my 4-inch hake brush. I'm going to hold it at an angle so the drips are coming. And when I get to the last drip, I just set it on the paper and I slowly pull it across. And then, aha, see it starting. Again, I'm going to stick my brush in, hold it at an angle, and as soon as it stops dripping, I set the brush down, grab the tail of the brush, and just literally slowly pull it across and just let this graphite do its thing. Okay, I moved in a little closer here so you can see what's happening. Once again, dip your brush, let it run. See the water? As soon as it stops running, set it down and pull it across the paper. And you can see what's happening. All those lovely edges are getting really wet. Every time I clean the brush, hold it till it drips, finishes dripping, and then I'll just pull this across. Oh, I really like what I'm seeing. This is exciting. I'm going to move it up so you can see some more. Okay, now we're getting you're getting the feel for this whole picture. These things are so beautiful at this stage. I have a hard time putting color down. I'm just reacting to the beauty of this movement. Whatever you do, if you miss a spot, don't go back and go over it again. Then you get too much dark. What we have here is the perfect amount. So I'm going to wet this last stroke, and then we're going to back up and you can see the whole thing. Now is when we really have to quickly. So take care of anything you have to do before you start, because when your picture's this wet, you got to move. Now, one of the things, there are always some people who get really concerned. Oh, I lost all my whites. So if you think you've lost too much, look at this. You can just come in. See, there was a lot of black there. Look at what I'm doing. You can just lift it and get back. If the graphite goes too much, goes too far, and you're not happy with it, go ahead and lift out that color, you would use, it's called a thirsty brush. And what you do is you just clean the brush, shake it out, and wipe it till it's dry, and then just come in and lift the graphite. This is called the thirsty brush. And I frequently do come around and pick out a few of these areas that I feel just went too far. So I think we're set. I actually like that look. Ooh, this poor guy. Oh yeah, we gotta lift a little down here. And maybe a few of these guys. I think I'm gonna lift a little bit on the table too. Just a little. Most of this I really like. Okay, now the reason you use a thirsty brush is that way you're still letting the surface remain wet. If I take a tissue and I come in here and dab it, I just dried the paper. So if you really want to highlight, a really strong highlight, then you can dab it with a tissue, but you have to remember, now you've created a dry spot. So another real handy tool we're going to be using a lot is what we call a fine mister. And this has a narrow inner tube, and when you spray it, you get a fine mist. And so holding my hand high, I will keep this wet with my fine mister. And there's going to be times I'm going to come in and even really mist it. So I'm going to go for a brush, now not too big, this is about a size 10. I'm going to activate my colors with my sprayer. Look how clean they are. I hope you're impressed. I cleaned my palette just for you. Ready to go. So now the first color I'm going to use is my Winsor Yellow. Winsor Yellow moves in water. Oh, I just love this. It moves in water. So if I just take and throw some of this color around, I'm going to get some beautiful yellow. It's just going to be moving around and kind of flowing through here. So let's get a little bit of this yellow moving right off the bat. It's like the sun coming out. And I'm thinking about how the movement goes. I'm starting here and I'm moving it across, bookending it across some of these areas. And I think it would be nice just to have a little bit of that down here too. Now I noticed that I've kind of lost my rose again here. So I'm just going to take and pump out a little bit more of this. Now I'm ready to have some real fun. I'm going to use another color that moves a lot, and that's alizarin crimson. This is a color that really moves in water. See, there's colors that move in water and there's colors that don't move in water. And I've already given you that chart as part of your introductory gift. So you might want to have that chart handy. And alizarin crimson is one of the colors that really moves in water. So see, I wanted to have some red roses, of course. So I'm going to be just adding some of this. This is a dark red, alizarin. So I'm just going to add some of this color into the roses. And I've chosen alizarin because it moves so much. Now some of the colors that we have don't move, but alizarin does. So as long as my paper's wet, I'm going to see a lot of movement. And if it doesn't move, you know what? I'm going to show them who's boss. I'm just going to come in here, and with my sprayer, I'm going to put some more color down. Now when you see hard edges, like I don't like this hard edge here, I'm just coming in with my wet brush, and I'm trying to keep a lot of these edges from being hard edges. Now I'm going to come in with a really bright color. This is a color called Scarlet Lake, and you know what? This color doesn't move. So I really have to be careful when I put this color down. But if you put it on top of the alizarin, see, that was the whole idea. You put the alizarin down because it moves, then you come in with this really bright color and put it right on top, and now it'll move. It takes on that quality. A color that doesn't move moves when you put it in with a color that moves. How's that for complicated? And then I really like, the red is now very spotty, but you know what? As this painting progresses, you'll see me repeating the red. I'm going to be adding some lace down here on the tabletop. How about this? I got it at the thrift store for $1. And sorry whoever did all this work, but we're going to turn it into some beautiful texture here. And of course I'll put a little red in with that. It's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to love it. Now I want to take some of this yellow that does move and Antwerp blue, another color. Look at how it's charging in. This color also likes to move. So I'm going to start putting this color down. Because see, I want this underpainting, oh look at how wet, I love it. I want this underpainting to just say wet, and I don't want it to look tight like a traditional still life. We're just having some fun here. So by using colors that move in water, you can see how quickly I can just move this around and get some lovely movement. Now, if it doesn't move enough, get out your best friend. See, there's my best friend. It's my husband of 53 years. I put a picture of him on my fine mister. Poor guy, he's been hearing that for a long time, but that's okay. Okay, now another color I really love is quinacridone gold. So I'm going to put some quinacridone gold into some of these leaves. It doesn't like to move. You'll see it on that chart I gave you. Some colors just don't like to move. So what I'm going to do is put it in with colors that do move. So I'm putting it in right now with the Windsor. See how it's moved way out of those edges? That's what we want. The further the better. And then we're going to come in with manganese blue. This color doesn't move. So I'm going to put some manganese blue now on these jars. And I'm kind of happy with the fact that this doesn't move, because now I wouldn't mind if it just stayed on the jar. When you get into these heavy mineral-based paints like manganese, they just don't move on a wet surface, and this is one of them. Manganese blue, I love this color. And see, these jars do have this bluish cast. So I'm just going to come in and do a little bit of this manganese blue cast on these jars. Looks pretty good. And it's going to stay where I put it, believe it or not. As wet as this is, it's going to stay where we put it. Unbelievable. Okay, now if you see your paper from time to time, oh, I got a big gob here. From time to time, you're going to see ruffles happening, and that's because your paper expands when you wet it. So every now and then, I just pick it up and stretch it. Oh, that feels so good. And what do we have? Looks like we need just a little bit more wetness there. Now, in terms of lifting, if I want to, if I feel like, oh gee, I've lost some of the lights on my main subject, I can still come in and lift away some of this. See, like I feel this one got a little bit dark, so I'm going to lift away a little bit of it, but look at the beautiful color, the movement. Don't lift that. You'll be bad if you lift that. Don't lift those edges that bleed out, you guys. That is what we're looking for. That, oh, love that, love that. But if I want to, see, I could still come in and lift away a little bit of lightness into the subject, but I wait until it's kind of done what I wanted it to do, and that's move, do this moving. So keep your flat brush. This is a 1-inch flat brush. And this is a wonderful brush, one you have to have this brush. And see, again, if you just feel, oh my gosh, this is getting too dark, just lift it away. Come in and lift it back. Wow, I'm starting to like this. I think what I'm going to do next is think about my background. And one of the things I want to do is to come in here with some darks. And before I do that, I'm going to start saving a few of these dark lights in my jar. Like I would like to have this really light along that edge. And I think I would like it a little lighter here. So I am going to dry the paper a little bit now and lift out some of these lights. See, half the fun is lifting the lights back. We've already put them down, now we can lift them away. So I like that. I like the play of light and dark in here. It's very nice. Now I'm going to take my 1-inch flat brush and I'm going to start thinking about coming in with some darks. So I move this in closer so that I can show you a little bit about the darks. Now this is that amazing color, manganese blue, and I can come in with this blue and paint it right next to these subjects. And look at it, I can even get a hard edge. As wet as this is, I can put in some hard edges. And that's what I want to do. I want to put in some kind of fun, hard edges. Just pull it in here. And I think I'll do another one over here, maybe save some white. Pull this color down a bit. And then I'm even going to go darker. Another color that doesn't move in water is indigo. Now indigo is a very dead color. And I do have it on my palette just for these special occasions. So if I do indigo, then what I do is I actually mix another color in it. So if I do indigo with a little manganese added in it, I can actually get this kind of dark tone. And manganese doesn't move in water either. It's amazing. So I can just kind of come in here and get some hard edges, get some interesting little patterns, throw some paint on here, get some broken shapes. Love that. So I think I'm just gonna kill this whole corner here. Go a little darker, come in. And look at how that red is invading those colors. Oh man, this is fun. I think I want to get this darker next to my subject here. And then down here I'm gonna go darker over here next to my subject. And see, when you work this wet, those wet into wet colors, they'll just keep invading. They're pretty strong. And as soon as it gets to be, you don't like it, lift it away, either with your tissue or with your brush. I kind of like the way now we can see this vase. You couldn't really see the vase before. So I'm just going to come in with a few more darks. This is the kind of thing, usually you do this when your paper's dry. Not me. I want it to be wet, and let's get scary. Let's put some more darks going up here. Let's pull some more darks in over here. Let's pull some more blue in. This manganese blue is actually a really pretty color. I'm going to put some more of that beautiful blue up here closer to my lovely roses. Look at that. That just amazes me how that red is still invading. We'll see what happens down here. I bet it's going to do the same thing. It's like this painting's got a mind of its own. So I'm gonna stop, I want a nice light corner over here, so I'm just gonna come in and wet this with some clean water and just let this edge kind of melt out. But I'm going to continue to pull in just a little bit more of this dark mixed with manganese. This is indigo mixed with manganese. I've got the dark coming down. I'm starting my path through here. So I'm going to come in here and see, I can fix this later when the paper's dry. But I'm just having too much fun right now. So if I'm going to have that bright blue there, I really need to pull it through just a little bit and connect it with this. Oh, I love that red. If I put just a little bit next to this, that red can still have its way. Soften some edges. And I think a little bit of dark down here. So let's come in, again, this is our manganese blue, and it's very, it just doesn't move. It's a lot, and indigo. These two colors just don't move. So I love the fact that we're doing kind of a checkerboard. It's dark on the outside, now it's going to be dark on the inside. Now I'm going to reverse it and come out dark over here. Down here, we'll put a little weight on the table. Move it across. Now this is really, really wet. This is one of the wettest paintings that I'm going to share with you. I just thought we might as well start out wet. No use fooling around. Anybody can paint on dry paper. That's for sissies. This is the real thing, you guys. If you can start feeling comfortable painting this wet, you've arrived. Okay, now I'm going to charge in a few more colors, one of which is this very, very intense color. So you can see I'm going to really try to make these roses jump. This is my Scarlet Lake. This is a color that doesn't move in water, but if you put it this wet, my gosh, it's going to move a little bit. So I'm really going to charge in some more of this beautiful fresh color, because this painting is about the roses. So we definitely want the roses to sing. So we're going to give those roses a little more kick. Oh yeah, I like it already. And this rose here needs a little sprucing up. There you go, buddy. And then over here, and down here. Oh yeah. So this is just my pure Scarlet Lake. It's a beautiful color. So I think we're almost ready to stop. I'm going to think about maybe a couple of some darks. One of my favorite dark to think about is a color that I mix using quinacridone, burnt orange, and Antwerp blue. These two colors make a beautiful dark green. Oh, it's so pretty. And see, we're going to still need a few dark greens. And of course we can add these later, but I can't wait. I want to get a few more dark greens in here, especially the ones that are against the light background. So see, if I come in here and put this really dark green color against that really light background, I'm going to get them to burn out a bit. That's what I like. This is an underpainting. This isn't a finished painting. So we like this when they move. Now I just dipped into the Windsor yellow with a little Antwerp. Both these colors move like crazy. So I'm just going to give them another chance to kind of spread their wings here. And we're getting close, folks. It's almost time to wrap it up and just let the painting do its thing. This is when I have to think about, are there any more tricks I want to do? One of the things I want to share with you is where we take the colored pencils and then using lace, we can color sand into this and get some lovely patterns. But I'm going to do that when it's dry, when there's more control. Another thing we can think about is maybe just a little bit of salt. I love texture. And one of the 6 elements of design that you'll hear me talk about a lot is adding texture. So if I want to add just a little texture, say, into some of these bottles, just like a little sparkle. And it's the last thing you do. When you put salt down, you're done. So we're going to, I might just add, see, I like that path of yellow. That was the first thing I did. Remember that? So if I put just a little bit of salt over here next to my path of yellow, which is light. See, I never put salt in my darks. I only put the salt as a transition between the dark going into the light. So this is going to give me little dots, dark, dot, 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 going into the light. Here we're going to have dark with few little dots going into the light. And maybe just a little bit down here. And this is just table salt. One thing you never do is hold it over the top while you're deciding where to put it. Put it over here, pick it up, and be very careful. Only a little bit of salt. Well, folks, we're going to let this dry, and we'll come back and finish it. Well, here we are a few hours later, and I'm pretty excited about my painting. I think I have finally loosened up. I've probably done about, I hate to say, maybe about 15 of these over the summer, and it's been just so much fun. And I think each time I do it, I get a little looser. So now I'm ready to evaluate, what do I need to do? Of course, I need to get rid of the salt. And you can see in through here the salt. And remember I talked about it as a transition? Actually, I put it in a little early. I was still very wet when I quit painting. You can see this look right here is when the salt goes in too early. But you know what? That's life. I always tell people, just get over it. It may not have been exactly what you wanted, but just get over it. It's the only way. So we're ready now to evaluate this. And one of the things I'm very pleased with, remember I started out by throwing that yellow down? First color I used was the yellow because Windsor yellow loves to move in water. So I threw that in, and then I threw a little bit down here. So that created like this path of light going through it. Then when I came in with the reds, you can see how they invaded that back. Just pushed their way right into that background. And I was really happy with what happened when I pulled in my darks. And I thought, well, I hate to lose all that, but I didn't because it was so wet. This color is more aggressive. Remember how I told you manganese blue and indigo just do not move in water. They just sink. They just sit there. They're heavy. They're what you call dug out of the earth mineral colors. So they're heavy and they sink. But these quinacridone colors are very dye-based and aggressive. Look at how it just pushed right into that manganese. I love that. So now I've got to decide, where do I want to put more color, more darks? What do I want to do? Well, one of the things I think would be great would be to come in with that same bright color because I want this to sing out and say roses. So I would say I'm going to come in here and do a little bit more with some of these reds and just lay it right in here and wet my brush, shake it out, and I'm going to then come in and touch this edge and just let it soften a bit. There, you can see how that's popping it out. So I had to take a quick pause because I forgot my little bracelet. So now I'm just going to continue keying up some of these bright colors on the roses themselves. I'm not going to do them all, but the ones that look like they faded a bit, I'm just going to pop this color in, especially at the base of the color, the rose, excuse me. And then remember, I'm going to wet my brush, shake it out, and then I touch the extra moisture on my little sock here. So it keeps this wet, but it's wet enough to lose this edge. If I were to just go into the water and come out and try to lose this edge, I would be creating bleed backs. So with this little sock idea, it's perfect. So I'm just going to do a few more and then we're going to move on. So I basically am putting these at the base. This is Scarlet Lake, very, very bright color. You have to go pretty bright if you want to key it up because remember there's a lot of carbon in here. So now I'm going to wet my brush, shake it out, touch it on here, just enough moisture for me to come in and lose that edge. Don't want to leave any hard edges. I want to keep this whole thing looking really soft. We like that. So now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to come in here with some of these darks. If you'll remember, I did some manganese blue and I mixed it with a little indigo. I never do indigo by itself. It's just dyes like a black hole in your paper. But if you mix a color in with it, you can really get some nice darks. And so here is a beautiful example. Look how pretty that is. And so we'll come over here and just pop a little dark in here. Pull it along the edge of the bottle to identify the bottle. And we'll go around this bottle to identify that. But see, I like what's happening in between here. Ooh, I can't lose that. So I'm going to wet my brush, shake it out, take the extra moisture off on my little sock here, start outside, push it in, and see we're just going to have a beautiful lost edge. Over here too, I might save that little white. Over here too, we're going to save a few, just lose that edge. So see what we've done now? We've really popped that, but we haven't really lost all this really wet feel. I love that. I think I need to do just a little bit more of that. Down here, I'll crisp up this edge a bit. And of course, this rose down here is going to get a little color reimbursement too. I'm just going to come in there and give it a real nice pop. Why don't I just do a little bit right now? Same color, this is Scarlet Lake. And see, I think about the deep crevices and the bottom here of the flower. So just coming into a few of these deep crevices is really all you need. Then simply clean your brush, shake it, take the extra moisture out. So see, this has still got quite a bit of moisture in it. And coming in like this, I can just lose that edge, and you don't even know that I was messing around in there. See, it's just a nice lost edge. Okay, another thing we can think about doing is increasing some of the color, just some straight manganese over here, just to kind of pop some of these, to say blue jar. So as much as you think you need. Now I might decide just to make this jar behind here bluer I should say. So I'm always looking for that contrast. So if we put a little more color at the edge of that water, lose the edges, pop this a little bit, maybe pop the back of the water here just a bit. A little suggestion of that blue maybe over here. So you just move around the picture trying to increase the colors without overdoing it. A lot of people think if they're going to have a blue jar, they got to paint the whole jar blue. Wrong. don't paint the whole jar blue. Just do little segments, little bits of segments here. So I think I'm going to come in here and say blue jar. And maybe a little bit on the edge here coming around. Maybe a little bit. See, when you have the same color background and foreground, let's change something. Let's put a little more blue on the jar here. Lose the edge. Lose it. But I'm going to leave this edge light because I like the contrast. So when you start looking across here now, we've got light, mid-tone, light, dark, light, mid-tone, light. That's what I'm looking for. I'm trying to get this wonderful effect. Another color that I really like, and we did talk about this earlier, is when you take quinacridone burnt orange and you mix it with Antwerp blue. And this is going to give you a beautiful, beautiful, dark, transparent green. And so many people use store-bought greens, but once you start hanging out with me, you're going to hear about don't use those store-bought greens. So what we're going to do is we're going to start now coming in and putting in some of these nice dark greens, especially when we're against a light background. Then we want a darker value green. So you can see already how nice that is. I'm going to soften a few of these edges. And here's another cool trick. When you have a stem coming into a jar, I'm going to move in closer so you can really see this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have the stem, and when it hits the water, it's going to move. So in order for it to move, what I do is I wet just the water. Pretty cool. So just wet the water that's in the jar. And carefully follow the edge, because when you drop color into a wet surface, it's just going to keep going until it hits the dry. So now we're going to pick up this lovely dark, and see, you would see it in between those rings. Now I'm painting on dry paper at this point. Now watch what happens. When I hit the water, it's going to spread all over. And it's going to look like it's in water. Is that too cool? Now I'm going to make this stem dark. So it's going to come down here on solid, dry. It's going to be solid. But as soon as it hits that wet surface, see how it just spreads? I think this is cool. And you can just keep adding more if you want it to spread more. So that's one of the ways you can make it look like water. You paint it on dry paper here, pre-wet this, and you can see how it just rolled out. I think it looks great. And we've got another one over here. Same thing. If we just very quickly wet the water first, just clean water, and then we come in with our green. Now remember, this is quinacridone burnt orange, Antwerp blue. And when I come in with the stem, you can't see it all, so I'll start about here. But when you come in with that beautiful dark stem, and then you hit that water, oh my goodness, here we go. Zap. It's going to move around. I love it. And if it doesn't move enough, just, you can get in there and wiggle it too. So you can just give it a little extra. But it certainly does make it look like it's wet. I think it's pretty cool. So now it's just a matter of building up all kinds of darks and lights. For example, there's a great big stem in here. Not stem. For example, there's a great big leaf in here. And again, I should just simply wet this so it goes all over. So we're going to let this part of it go around. And the upper part's going to stay stiff. And then you can increase these colors any way you want. Now I'm going to set up a pretty exciting part, and that is I'm going to take this plastic lace. Somebody gave me this as a gift. Thank you again. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create this lacy pattern in the background, almost like a wallpaper. So in order to accomplish this, I'm going to take a nice big brush, clean water, and first of all I have to wet the area that I want this to happen. And see, with Arches paper, this is amazing. I only painted this a short time ago. I haven't even used a hairdryer on it. But look at how I can paint over this and none of the colors reactivate. That's Arches paper. It's the only paper I really, really like. So I'm going to pull this over and just suggest it here and there. So I only wet the areas where I want this to happen, and I'm going to do a little color sanding now. This is a wonderful idea. Some of you know about this, but if this is the first time you've seen it, you're going to love it. Now remember, this is plastic. I didn't go to the thrift store for this one. This is just probably came from Walmart. So now I'm going to take colors that relate to this. This is a couple of blues, and then I have this lovely red. So I'm going to use all of these colors, and I'm also going to take 100 grit, I should say, sandpaper. So we're just going to start sanding right into this area. And when I get to the flowers, I just sort of stay clear. I just took a minute to sharpen this. So I'm just going to do a little bit around here. I don't want a lot because I love the way that's bleeding out. So this is my lightest color. These are watercolor pencils. Now this one's considerably darker, but it's in the blue tones. And I'm just going to give it a little darker blue color here. And I haven't tried this before. In fact, I just bought these pencils when I was down at Art of the Carolinas. And now the red, and I really think this is important. I'm going to take some of this red and pull it into the background. There's different ways to do it, but this is obviously one of the easiest, just with a little color sanding. So it just echoes those red flowers into the background here. Let's hope this works. Here we go. Be careful when you take this off, because remember there's a lot of sand, there's a lot of color on the front of this too. Oh yeah, that is pretty cool. So you saw me wet it. So what I want to do now is just simply take my fine mister, and I'm with my hand held high, I'm just going to do a little gentle mist. And see, that helps me to get that, to be really sure that all those colors are going to bond with the paper. You can see just that little bit of red, how nice it moved in there. And we also have a nice repetition of the blues. I was kind of lucky. And look at, you can still see the path of yellow and you can still see the reds bleeding out. So that was cool. Okay, I'm also going to put a lace tablecloth on the table here. This is the little doily. My mom used to make these. I used to just watch her for hours do this. So I think it's pretty cool. And I'm going to do the same thing, only I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm just going to kind of make it look like it's sitting on a table here. So I'm going to fold it about there. And of course, the first thing I have to do, I always like to repeat things because you need to hear it more than once. So now, by waiting until this was dry, I'm in control. See, even if I had gotten some of this sanding onto these roses, it wouldn't stick because it only sticks where it's wet. So now I'm going to come in and do the same thing again. I'm just going to wet around and wet around here. And this is my little 1-inch flat brush. It gives me quite a bit of control, actually. More control than my 1.5-inch brush. So just a matter of wetting this where I want this to happen. Then I'm going to place this where I want it to happen. Then I'm going to go ahead and sand. And see, it's only going to go where it's wet. So I think I'll use pretty much the same colors. We have our 100 grit sandpaper, and I'm going to come in with the same beautiful blue. And I'm just going to go over the edge of this enough to kind of indicate where it is. I'm not going to worry about filling in the corner there. And I'm just sort of dusting it out just to give kind of a little lost edge. And possibly a little bit of this dark color, and that will be closer to the subjects. So a little closer to the leaves, a little inside this tight area. It's only going to go where it's wet, so you don't have to be perfect. Just whatever you want to do. And of course, I'm going to use the red, very important. We need to have a little bit of that red down here to echo those beautiful roses. And I don't want to overdo it, so again, I'm going to carefully remove this, because remember, this is full of little particles too. Hey, there you go. How fun is that? And again, I always like to hold my hand high and come in, and you'll notice it gets darker when you do this. So this is a really nice way to end it. I actually should have dumped off any extra before I did that spray. Well, too bad. It's actually okay. It goes with the looseness of the whole thing. So let's back this up. I don't think I'm entirely done with this. But I'm actually pretty happy with it. So of course I would come in with by darkening a few more of the stems and popping a little more color into some of these. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, and then when I'm done, I'll be back to share it with you. This is also a good time to let you know that this particular lesson will also be available in a kit. So you'll just be getting one of these little printouts that you can trace, and you'll also be getting in your initial kit that I'm going to send you, your little gift kit, you will already have gotten the black pencil and some sandpaper. And I think with those few items, you'll be ready to paint along with me. The next thing I wanted to do was just to point out a few that are finished here. And for example, here you can see when you have light flowers, that's a no-brainer. Just pop in the darks behind it. And then when you have things in a light area, push it darker. So dark against light, light against dark. That's the easiest way to remember. And this one just had kind of a soft background, colors bleeding out. So I chose not to come in and pop anything darker. This one basically is what I got at the end of the painting, wet into wet. But I think I still would come in and pop, just like pop this apple a little bit. This is my Scarlet Lake again. I really do have other colors on my palette. And then like this little guy, he's just sitting there, and I could pop out some of these flowers to kind of frame them in a little better, especially dark here against the lighter background. And then keep these lighter, but maybe just put a little more color at the core here, just to suggest the color of it. But it looks better light against the dark. So, and this one I probably will add a table at some point. And this one the same way, really will be fun to make some of these a little bit darker, increase the greens, obviously pop up some of these berries, make them a little darker. Here we go again, Scarlet Lake. It's okay. And I would do the same thing here. I would just pull some of that brighter color into some of these petals. And it's just fun to see it come alive. But one of the things that you will be a little disappointed with is it will still dry with that graphite in it. So don't think you did something wrong. You're still going to have a lot of the graphite is going to mix with your colors, and it's just going to keep them on the gray side. But just get over it, because it's really fun to see that combination of graphite and painting. So I'll be back shortly when this is dry and I've had a chance to do a few more crisp edges, and I'll show you the finished piece. Thank you. Well, when I ended my underpainting, I only wanted to do a very little bit to finish it, because I wanted to keep this really alla prima, all at once, fresh underpainting, really wetted to wet. So I basically just came in behind these two bottles here and popped this dark so that the bottles were light against a dark background. And then you'll notice over here, I've actually added darks so that this bottle is dark against the light of the background. Same thing here, dark against the light of the background. And once I established all the bottles, I came in and I just painted the stems darker, and I did pop in a little bit more red into each one of these roses, but I was very careful because these roses, I didn't want to take away that really loose bleed out of the painting out of the box feel. I wanted it to stay really fresh and alla prima style. So I hope your painting goes well when you do all the finishing. But remember, keep it really fresh. Don't overdo it.